Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Kareem Kandi here doing another one of the improv videos for the Tacoma School of the Arts Jazz Improv class. The last video we were talking about guide tone lines and how to make those work. And I think we used the example of Paul Desmond and Jerry Mulligan from their album Two of a Mind, Way You Look Tonight, to kind of illustrate some of the harmony lines that Jerry Mulligan was playing underneath. What I wanted to do today was to actually show you a guide tone line. I'm going to share the screen here so you can kind of see how this works. And let me do this here. Where is that? There it is. Okay. So what I've done here is I've taken the tune. This is a song by Duke Ellington, great piano player and composer. And this is a song of his entitled C Jam Blues. It's just 12-bar blues. There are lots of different chords that you can use to play on this song to harmonize, but I've just used some basic ones here just to outline things. And the reason I wanted to do this was so you could actually see how a guide tone line works. And what I would recommend doing if you're new to doing this and you have a song that you're working with is take the chords and write the guide tones out so that you can visually see what's going on here. So here I've got 4 bars of C7, 2 bars of F7, 2 bars of C7, a bar of G7, a bar of F7, and then 2 bars of C7. So as I mentioned in the other videos, typically when we're talking about guide tones, the first ones that you usually start with are the thirds and the sevenths. And the reason I said that is because typically those are the parts of the chord that resolve by half step, where you can see where the harmony is kind of moving. So C7, the notes that I have for C7 are C, E, G, and B flat. So C is my root, E is my third, so there's my third right there. G is the fifth, and B flat is the seventh. So there's my thirds and sevenths for C7. And we have 4 bars of that. Now, we're on B flat here, and we're on A. The next chord we're going to is F7 down here. So the chord tones for F7 are F, A, C, and E flat. Well, there's my A right here, and there's my E flat right there. Now, the reason I wrote them on those particular lines and spaces is because here's my B flat. So the B flat would resolve down by half step to my A, and my E would resolve by half step down to my E flat. So I wrote them in those positions because that's the voice leading. The voice would move from one position right down to the next closest one. So there it is. So we have 2 bars of the F7, and then we go back to C7. So, okay, well, my A is going to move back up now to the 7th, which is B flat of C7. And then the E flat on F7, which is my 7th here, will resolve down to the 3rd of C7, which is the E. So you can see, all right, that's moving up a half step to the B flat. That's moving up a half step to the E. Then here we're going from C7 to G7. So G7, my G is my root, B is my third, D is my fifth, and F is my 7th. So the B is the third, F is the 7th, and again I wrote it that way because here my B flat would move up a half step to B, and my E would move up a half step to F. So there again is that half step resolution. And then from there on the G7 we go to F7. Now here it's going to move a little bit more differently. So I've got B, and now it's going to move down to A on F7. That's the closest one there. And then my F is going to move down to E flat. Now, again, you could move other places, but I'm trying to stick with thirds and sevenths here. And that is still pretty close. That's within a step. And then as soon as we get done with that, we go right back to from the F7 to the C7. So my A going up to B flat, right? And then the E flat going up to E. So now we're back to moving by half steps again. So as I mentioned, you know, the thirds and the sevenths are the ones that typically resolve by half step. That's where you can see the harmony moving. So when you plot it out like this, when you actually write it out, you can visualize it and see it a little bit more easily. Eventually, if you keep working on this, you know, learn it for one song, then you learn another song, and then another song. You get, you know, and you memorize your scales and chords. You get pretty quickly adapted to doing this, where you can do it without looking at it. But when you're first getting started working with these things, it's kind of nice to you know, write it down so you can see where the harmony is moving. So ways to embellish this. We talked about this a little bit. You know, we listened to that Jerry Mulligan exercise where you can hear he's playing lots of different things here on the tune that he's doing, or most tunes. But you can embellish these just as they are, just rhythmically, or you can actually take notes of the scale and actually embellish them. So let's see if I can get this over here. So here's C7. So I'll play the chord in my left hand. Hopefully this will come through volume-wise over on the video here. But here's the chord in my left hand. And then there's my third of C7. There's the E. When I go to F7, there's the E flat right underneath it. Then back to C7, back to E on the C7 chord. And from here now I go to F, then down to my E flat on the F7, and then back to E on the C7. So it's all close together. So if I were to embellish that guide tone line, well, first things first, let's play the guide tone line just with whole notes all the way through so you can hear it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the E moves to E flat. 2, 3. Back to E. Now to F. Sorry. Now to E flat. Now to E. So that's the guide tone starting on the third of C7, starting on the E. So that's the closest line through that. So now if I were to embellish that using rhythms, so I'm not going to change that note at all, but I'm going to just use rhythms to improvise that guide tone line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can make it as complex or as simple as you want, but all I'm doing here is taking the existing guide tone lines, just the thirds or how they're moving through, and I'm just improvising using rhythms on that. That's it. The other line, that one would be the one starting on the third. The next line would start on the seventh on that B flat. So if I work that through on C7, it goes B flat for 4 bars, and then from there I move to A on the F7, then back to B flat, then to the B on G7, the A on F7, back to B flat. So now if I take that line and improvise using just rhythms, not changing the notes, that would sound like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've taken both lines, the one starting on the 7th right here, and then also the one starting on the 3rd, and worked it through just using rhythms to improvise through the measure to measure with. So now I can take notes of the scale and embellish it that way. So now I can use rhythms and notes of the scale and try to come up with something that sounds melodic here. So let's give it a shot. So I'm going to start on the E here and see how we go here. 1. And I'll keep it fairly simple. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now, I mean, you can hear I'm not doing anything too crazy. I'm trying to come up with a kind of a simple idea that kind of makes sense and kind of builds off of the original idea here. But now let's take it a little bit further. Still using, coming back to the thirds or the sevenths, coming back to that line if we can. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, again, you can hear, I'm kind of doing the same repetitive figure, but that's kind of, gateway into embellishing a guide tone line with notes of the scale. Let's try the pattern from the 7th now, the guide tone line that starts on the 7th. So we're talking about the B flat here, resolving down to the A, back to the B flat, back to the B, then the A and the B flat. So let's see how that works. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, I'm making it pretty simple, pretty tame. But when you listen to, you know, if you refer back to that recording that I was talking about, like a lot of those West Coast players, when you have two guys playing duets, one person will be soloing or playing the melody, and another person will be playing counter lines, a lot of times that are simply based off of, you know, this information that we see here, thirds and sevenths. So, and again, the reason I wanted to do this video today is because we were talking about it, you know, just talking, but this you can actually visually see it on the page. So if you're working on, you know, a standard or something out of a fake book or whatever, or you know, it's not a bad idea if you haven't done this before to get used to figuring out what guide tones are. I'm going to stop the screen share here. What guide tones are and how to put them together so you can visually see them. So hopefully that makes some sense here. The other thing that I wanted to do today was, and this goes back to, I'm kind of backtracking here a little bit, but since we're talking about embellishing guide tone lines with roots and sevenths, excuse me, thirds and sevenths, I wanted to talk about going back to, we talked about this idea of embellishing a melody by taking the melody and using the rhythm to, you know, just changing the rhythm slightly without moving notes or actually adding notes. And I wanted to do this now since I'm doing this on a Zoom recording here. I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to go to YouTube again. I wanted to check out a recording with you guys. Where is that here? Blah, blah, blah. Let's go to this, and let's go to this, and this, and this, and this. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I should have had this prepped, but, you know, I didn't. So I'm going to look up, there's a recording by Sonny Rollins. He did this with his trio. I think it's 1958 or, let me see here. Sonny, where is it? Here we go. Sonny Rollins, and actually, I don't know if this is going to have the one I'm looking for here. Sonny Rollins, How High the Moon. Stop. Maybe it's not going to have it. Let me see if this is the right one. It might not be.
Most people and most businesses
And we'll check out this ad like first. How about that?
You'd agree, right? But what they can't do is stuff like this.
Let's skip that. Okay, so this is the recording I'm looking for. What I want you to check out here is the first several times. He's playing on a standard called How High the Moon, and the first several times through the melody or through the form, all he's doing is playing the melody and embellishing the melody. He doesn't go into playing a bunch of different stuff. He's just taking the melody and changing the way the phrasing goes, or the order of notes or rhythms. So let's check this out. And if you're not familiar with this tune, you might want to, you know, listen, find some versions of this on YouTube to familiarize yourself with it, and then you know, check out what he's doing here. So here's the melody. So that's one time through the form right there. Now he's going to continue on, and you'll hear he's still kind of playing that same theme, but he's playing around with it rhythmically and by adding different notes. So right there, that's the very first time that he's not playing the melody. But if you know the guide tones of this song, like we were talking about guide tones earlier, he's starting off with guide tones. Da 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 da. Let's go back a little bit. You can hear that. That's the major seventh going down to the sixth. Right here. Those are guide tones. Da starts on the major seventh, and this is G. The chord is G major seven. He starts on the F sharp, going down to E. Da 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 da. Then it's G minor seven to C7. Da 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 da. He's playing F to E. It's guide tones. So he's just, I mean, so not only, I mean, it illustrates the part we talked earlier in this video about guide tones, but he's also taking the melody and embellishing the melody with notes and rhythms. Now he's taking the guide tone lines and embellishing it with notes and rhythms. So now I'm going to go back because I don't want to talk over that. I want you to hear it, but let's check that out. Okay, here we go. So 4 bars, he just takes for that 4 bars, he's taking the guide tone line and working with it. So that's another, you know, example of how that works. So yeah, we'll stop here. So hopefully that makes sense. If you want to check out that whole recording, it's great. Sonny Rollins live in Stockholm, 1959 with his trio, and that was How High the Moon. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. My info is on the Tacoma School of the Arts website. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying somewhat sane out there, and hope to see you guys later. Take care. Bye.